Hey guys, welcome back. Tonight, we travel to a place where time stopped breathing. Pompeii. August 24th, 79 AD. The people of Pompeii woke up to what seemed like an ordinary day. The air smelled of fresh bread from the corner bakery. Children's laughter bounced off the stone walls. Sunlight poured between marble columns, glimmering over painted frescoes and market stalls bursting with fruit and wine. But high above the tiled roofs, Mount Vesuvius stirred, ancient, silent, watching. In just 18 hours, this thriving city of 20,000 souls would be frozen forever. Every heartbeat, every dream, every whispered goodbye sealed in ash. So tonight, we'll walk through Pompeii's final hours, meeting the bakers, the lovers, the mothers, and the dreamers whose stories were preserved by fire and time itself. So before you get comfortable, take a gentle moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if these deep sleep history stories help you find peace, sleep better, or simply reflect on our shared journey through time. Now, close your eyes. The streets of Pompeii are waiting.
The first light of dawn brushed across the Bay of Naples, painting Pompeii in soft gold. The marble streets still glistened with dew from the night, and a thin mist curled between the stone columns of the Forum. The city was quiet for a breath. Then came the familiar symphony of morning. Merchants rolling open their wooden shutters, the clop of donkey hooves echoing on cobblestones, and the distant splash of water from the fountain of Mercury. It was a city alive with purpose, unaware that history was watching. The Forum stood at its heart, the beating center of Roman order and beauty. Its grand porticos and Corinthian columns framed a space where ideas, gossip, and trade mingled like incense smoke in the air. Statues of emperors gleamed in the morning sun, their marble eyes forever gazing at the volcano that loomed beyond, Mount Vesuvius, calm and majestic, its slopes green and quiet. The mountain had been silent for nearly 8 centuries. To the people of Pompeii, it was more a guardian than a threat. Among the early risers was Marcus Valerius, a merchant of fine fabrics. His villa near the Street of Abundance overlooked the bustling marketplace, and he took pride in the scents and sounds that greeted each day. Figs, olives, and laughter mixing with the call of vendors. As he prepared his goods, he paused for a moment, watching the horizon glow. To him, it was a perfect morning, one that promised profit and peace. A few streets away, in the Temple of Jupiter, Julia knelt before the altar. The air smelled of burnt offerings and rose petals. She whispered prayers to the gods, asking for balance, fertility, and protection for her city. Her white robe caught the sun's first rays, turning the folds to liquid light. Julia was a priestess, young, devoted, and wise beyond her years. And though she had dreamed of leaving Pompeii to Rome, she could never bring herself to abandon this sacred ground. The gods, she believed, still walked among the columns when the morning mist was thick enough to hide their steps. Near the bakeries of Via dell'Abbondanza, Lucius, the baker, was already working his ovens. The heat radiated through the stone walls, and the smell of bread began to weave through the air. Crusty, warm, and alive. Lucius had baked through countless dawns like this one. He had no reason to think this day would be any different. Yet, if someone had told him that these loaves would be found 2,000 years later, still intact beneath layers of ash, he might have laughed. The city pulsed gently with life. The aqueducts whispered beneath the streets, carrying fresh water to fountains where children splashed their hands. Parrots called from terraces, echoing the chatter of their owners. Every window, every courtyard seemed to bloom with color and scent. Mosaics of gods and dolphins, potted herbs, the perfume of wine and bread. The hum of Pompeii was not loud, it was tender. The kind of peace that never announces its end. And above it all, beyond the laughter, beyond the rising sun, stood the mountain. It watched silently, its shadow stretching long and soft across the roofs, a sleeping giant beneath a sky too blue to warn. The mountain had been quiet for 800 years, and no one feared what slept within.
By mid-morning, Pompeii moved with a rhythm that had taken centuries to perfect. The streets were alive, not with chaos, but with an order born from habit and sunlight. Merchants called out prices in sing-song voices, their tables covered with figs, olives, and honey jars that glistened like amber. Women in linen tunics carried woven baskets, pausing to gossip at the fountain. The sound of flowing water filled the air, constant, soothing, eternal. To live in Pompeii was to live in the heart of Roman comfort. Even the stones beneath their sandals had stories, roads perfectly engineered to drain rainwater, lined with stepping stones so feet would never touch the dirt. Every doorway led to beauty, frescoes painted in ochre and crimson, mosaics of dolphins and gods shimmering on the floors. And in that morning light, everything seemed designed to last forever. Near the northern edge of town, Marcus Valerius inspected his goods in the marketplace. Silk from the east, dyed cloth from Alexandria, even tiny glass beads from Gaul, each item a whisper of how far Rome's reach extended. He haggled with a sea captain who smelled of salt and wine, both men laughing as they struck a deal. Trade was not just business here, it was a celebration of empire. Each coin exchanged carried the face of the emperor, a reminder that even in a small city like Pompeii, the pulse of Rome beat strong. Meanwhile, Julia walked through the forum, her sandals clicking softly on marble. She stopped to speak with a philosopher lecturing by the Temple of Apollo, where young students gathered, their scrolls unrolled like the wings of birds. Philosophy, trade, worship, all intertwined beneath the same blue sky. To Julia, this was the balance the gods had promised, a city in harmony, proud yet humble, faithful yet free. A bell rang in the distance. The baths were open. The thermae were the soul of daily life in Pompeii, a place where senators and slaves shared the same waters. Inside, the air shimmered with heat and steam. The caldarium glowed under bronze lamps, while the frigidarium offered a plunge into cool marble pools. Lucius,
finished with his morning baking, often joined his friends there to relax, to talk about the day's games, or simply to sit in silence and listen to the sound of dripping water. The baths were not a luxury, they were a ritual, a cleansing of body and mind. Beyond the baths stood the amphitheater, vast, echoing, capable of holding over 20,000 people. On some afternoons, the city gathered there to watch plays or gladiatorial matches. The cheers, the music, the thrill of spectacle, they made Pompeii feel larger than life itself. But today, the arena was quiet, awaiting the next celebration. Pigeons perched on its arches, cooing softly in the sunlight. A calm so perfect, it could fool even the gods. The rhythm of the city was not hurried. Pompeii existed in a state of effortless grace, a world where beauty was practical and peace felt permanent. Children skipped along the stepping stones, chasing each other with ribbons. Old men sat beneath vine-covered pergolas, sipping watered wine and recalling their youth when the Republic still stood. The breeze carried the scent of rosemary, sea salt, and something faintly metallic, though no one noticed. Life flowed like the aqueducts beneath their feet, steady, invisible, eternal. The mountain stood in the distance, its peak crowned with clouds. Travelers often admired it from the city gates, sketching its shape in charcoal or describing it in letters home, the mountain that watches over us. No one feared it. Why would they? It had been quiet for over 800 years. If it ever spoke again, surely the gods themselves would give warning. Yet, as Julia paused at the steps of the Temple of Jupiter and looked up, she thought she saw a thin wisp of smoke drifting against the morning light. She blinked, and it was gone. Perhaps it was just dust from the quarry, she told herself. The mountain was sleeping, after all. The mountain was always sleeping.
As noon approached, Pompeii shimmered beneath the Mediterranean sun, a mosaic of sound and color, life and devotion. The temples glowed white, their marble steps warm beneath sandaled feet. Priests moved through the courtyards, carrying bowls of incense that released slow spirals of smoke toward the heavens. The scent of myrrh and pine filled the air. At the Temple of Jupiter, Julia's voice echoed softly as she read an ancient hymn, her words fluttering like wings against the columns. "O gods of fire and earth," she whispered, "protect us as you always have." Outside, children ran through the square chasing a dog, their laughter blending with the chant of prayer. A breeze swept across the forum, lifting the petals from a merchant's stall. White blossoms spiraling into the sunlight before settling at Julia's feet. She smiled, believing it a blessing. Yet, for the briefest heartbeat, the ground beneath her toes trembled, so gently it could have been her imagination. The marble settled, the air stilled, and she continued her prayer. The gods, she thought, were simply stretching their limbs. At the bakery, Lucius delivered his last batch of loaves. Customers crowded around, praising the golden crust. He laughed, wiping sweat from his brow, and offered one to a passing soldier. The man thanked him and pointed toward the mountain. "It's wearing a new crown today," he joked. Lucius followed his gaze. The peak was shrouded in a faint haze, barely visible against the blue. He shrugged. "Maybe the gods are cooking too," he replied, and they both laughed. But the mountain did not. Marcus Valerius, meanwhile, stood at his villa balcony, looking toward the harbor where ships swayed lazily in the tide. He thought of his next voyage, the fabrics he would sell, the fortune he might earn. His wife called him to lunch, figs, goat cheese, and bread still warm from Lucius's oven. Life, in its perfection, seemed untouchable. In the baths, the air shimmered with steam and laughter. Philosophers debated the nature of the soul. Musicians plucked soft notes from their lyres, echoing through marble halls. Every sound was a thread, weaving the tapestry of a civilization that believed itself eternal. Even the aqueducts hummed beneath the earth, carrying the song of water through pipes and fountains, a heartbeat of stone. And yet, beneath that heartbeat, something else moved, faint, rhythmic, almost like breathing. No one heard it. The mountain did. As the afternoon light softened, Julia left the temple and walked toward the gardens of her villa. The fountains whispered among the laurel trees. Statues of Apollo and Diana glowed gold in the sun. She paused to feed the doves, her hand brushing against a fig leaf slick with dew. The air was warm, but heavy, as if holding its breath. Far off, a soft rumble rolled across the sky, so distant it could have been thunder, or perhaps just a wagon on the stones. Julia looked up. The sky was still clear, impossibly blue. "The gods are restless," she murmured, half in jest. Then she laughed and turned back to her path, her white robe trailing through sunlight and shadow. That evening, the city would feast. There was a wedding planned near the amphitheater, musicians ready, torches prepared to light the night. The scent of roasted lamb and wine would drift through the streets. The people of Pompeii would dance, sing, and sleep beneath the same mountain that had watched them for generations. They would not know that the air above was already changing, that deep within the mountain's heart, pressure built like a held breath. The gods were whispering again, but no one was listening. The echo of their warning slipped quietly between the temple bells and the sea breeze, lost in the laughter of a city that believed tomorrow would come.
The sun rose higher above Mount Vesuvius, spilling light over Pompeii's bustling marketplace. The Forum Boreum, the beating heart of trade, came alive with sound and color. Voices mingled like music, vendors shouting prices, sailors calling from the docks, the soft bleating of goats tied near the olive stalls. The air was thick with scent, salt from the sea breeze, crushed herbs, smoked fish, and the sweet tang of freshly pressed wine. It was the kind of morning that made life in Pompeii feel endless. Marcus Valerius walked among the stalls, his toga gathered neatly, eyes scanning the crowd like a man both proud and calculating. His business thrived on connections, and in Pompeii, everything depended on who you greeted first. "Marcus," called a sailor with a sunburned face, waving him over to a wooden cart loaded with amphora sealed in wax.
The garum from Hispania, finest you'll taste this season." Marcus smiled. Garum, the golden liquid Romans couldn't live without. Made from fermented fish guts and salt, its sharp aroma hung in the air, somewhere between rot and divinity. To Romans, it was more than sauce, it was flavor itself, the essence of appetite. "I'll take 10 jars, he said, tapping the wax to test the seal. The sailor grinned, wiping his hands on his tunic. "You'll make a fortune feeding the nobles." "Or ruin them," Marcus joked, and they both laughed. A few steps away, a young woman sold figs from wicker baskets, her hands stained purple. Children chased a stray chicken, tripping over baskets of lemons and amphora shards. The sound of barter rose and fell like waves, loud, alive, familiar. The same rhythm that had played for centuries in every Roman city, from Alexandria to Ostia. Julia passed through the square, the hem of her white robe brushing the dust. She carried a basket of offerings from the temple, small loaves, olives, and garlands of flowers. Her eyes lingered on a fresco newly painted on the wall beside a tavern, a scene of Dionysus, the god of wine, surrounded by dancing satyrs. The colors shimmered under sunlight, reds, blues, and golds glowing like liquid fire. Art for the gods or for men, she wondered aloud. Both, said an artist nearby, cleaning his brush, but men look longer. She smiled, dropped a coin into his palm, and continued walking. In the bakery, Lucius arranged his loaves in careful rows, the scent of wheat and honey drifting through the open window. A philosopher stood outside, arguing with a politician about Rome's newest decree. "Too much tax for too little glory," one said. "Too much glory for too little peace," the other replied. Around them, the world carried on, buying, eating, living. Pompeii was small, but it mirrored the empire itself. Ambition, noise, beauty, and denial. The marble statues that lined the marketplace glowed white beneath the sun, their carved eyes fixed on eternity. One depicted Mercury, the god of trade, smiling faintly, a purse in his hand. Marcus often joked that Mercury had the easiest job. He never had to pay tax. By the harbor, ships swayed gently against the docks, their sails drying in the heat. Crews unloaded jars of olive oil from Sicily, amphora of wine from Crete, baskets of dates from Egypt. The world flowed into Pompeii, and Pompeii gave back coin and stories. Near the fountain, Julia paused to watch the water sparkle in the basin. She remembered her grandmother telling her that each droplet reflected a god's gaze, that water carried memory. She dipped her fingers in and whispered a silent prayer. The stone beneath her hand felt warm, too warm for morning. She frowned but said nothing. A light tremor passed underfoot, faint as the flutter of a bird's wing. No one noticed, or perhaps they chose not to. The last time the earth had shaken, 17 years before, parts of the city had fallen. Walls cracked, temples trembled, and people spoke of omens. But that was long ago, and Pompeii had rebuilt itself, more splendid than ever. People preferred to forget. The mountain had been silent since, and silence, they believed, meant mercy. By late morning, the market had reached its peak. The sun poured down like honey over terracotta rooftops, and the scent of Pompeii's appetite filled every street. Smoke rose from taverns where cooks stirred pots of lentil stew and sprinkled coriander over roasted fish. The air was heavy with garum, that strange sacred sauce Romans poured on everything from bread to figs. A single drop could flavor an entire meal. Too much could ruin it. But for the people of Pompeii, it was the taste of home. "Try this," said Lucius the baker, offering Marcus a warm loaf brushed with olive oil and sprinkled with sea salt. The crust crackled as Marcus tore it in half, steam curling into the air. "Perfect," he murmured. "Bread and garum, food of the gods." Lucius laughed. "And wine for their prayers." He nodded toward a nearby stall where jars of red wine gleamed in the light. The vendor, a stout woman with sun-kissed skin, poured samples into small clay cups. The wine came from the slopes of Vesuvius, fertile, rich, and full of warmth. The very same soil that fed their vines, now sleeping beneath the calm mountain. People sipped and smiled, unaware they were drinking from the land that would soon bury them. Across the marketplace, Julia stopped near a spice merchant whose table looked like a painter's palette. Saffron, pepper, cumin, and cinnamon arranged in perfect rows. "From India," the merchant said proudly, letting her smell the tiny red threads. "As rare as a Roman's honesty," Julia laughed. "Then it must cost a senator's wage." The merchant winked. "For you, only half." The sound of bargaining was constant, not harsh, but rhythmic, like waves folding onto sand. Behind them, a group of men gathered beneath an awning to debate politics. A Roman official had arrived from Naples that morning, and his message was spreading quickly. New taxes on imports, stricter inspections on goods. "Always the same," one man grumbled. "The Senate in Rome grows fat, and we pay the price." Another replied, "We complain now, but tonight we'll still toast to the emperor." The laughter that followed was dry, familiar, resigned. In Pompeii, like all of Rome, politics was theater, passionate, predictable, and forgotten by dusk. Still, it was safer to joke than to rebel. Marcus joined them briefly, his merchant's instincts drawn to the rhythm of power. "The emperor builds roads and temples," he said, "and we sell what travels on them. That is balance, my friends." "Balance?" one replied. "You sound like a philosopher." Marcus smiled. "No, just a man who knows that fortune favors the patient." Beyond the chatter, the amphitheater loomed in the distance, its stone arches glowing white. Banners fluttered in the wind. Tomorrow would bring the gladiator games, a celebration of blood and glory. Children played with wooden swords, mimicking their heroes. Even Julia paused to watch, her priestess heart torn between reverence and pity. "Do the gods truly delight in such games?" she asked Lucius later that day. "Perhaps," he said, "but men certainly do." She sighed. "Then perhaps men have become gods themselves." Their laughter faded beneath the clamor of the marketplace, but her words lingered, soft, uneasy, like a thread of smoke. Around midday, the tremor came again, slight, almost tender,
but enough to rattle the amphorae stacked near the garum stall. The merchant cursed under his breath and steadied them with a hand. "Still the earth remembers," an old woman murmured. No one replied. For a moment the noise of the market dimmed, as if the city were holding its breath. Then someone shouted about a shipment of oysters from Baea, and life resumed its rhythm. The ground quieted, pretending to sleep again. The frescoes on the nearby walls shimmered in the heat, painted gods frozen in eternal feasts, unaware that one day they would be buried beside the people who worshipped them.
The afternoon light softened over Pompeii, falling through awnings and olive branches like liquid gold. The market was beginning to slow, though the air still hummed with the comfort of routine. The bargaining, the laughter, the scrape of sandals against stone. Somewhere, a lyre played a lazy tune, its notes winding between stalls of fruit and wine. Children lay on the steps, sharing honey cakes and watching clouds drift lazily above the volcano that had guarded their city for generations. It was a day like any other, perfect in its ordinary peace. Marcus stood near the fountain, counting coins, his fingers slick with sweat and olive oil. He had made good trade today. The ships had come early, the garum had sold quickly, and word of tomorrow's games promised more celebration. Yet as he leaned over the basin to wash his hands, a faint ripple disturbed the water. It was small, a single tremor, soft as a sigh, but it caught his reflection and fractured it. "The pipes again," he muttered, shaking his head. He didn't know the sound came not from the aqueduct, but from far beneath the mountain, where magma pressed against stone older than Rome itself. Julia, walking home through the Forum, felt it too. The marble beneath her sandals shivered like a living thing. She paused, glancing up at the statue of Jupiter towering above. For an instant, she imagined his expression had changed, the carved eyes looking less serene, more watchful. "Nonsense," she whispered, smiling to herself. "The gods don't move, only men do." She continued on, her white robe gliding through dust that rose like incense around her. Near the bakery, Lucius prepared his dough for the evening batch. He had lived long enough to remember the great quake 17 years ago, the one that split temples and swallowed streets. "It happens now and then," he said to his apprentice. "The earth shakes, then sleeps again." He smiled as he spoke, but his hands moved faster, kneading harder, as if trying to silence the unease stirring in his chest. In the distance, a dog barked once, short, sharp, startled, then fell quiet. The sound lingered longer than it should have. Above the roofs, the first gulls began circling toward the sea, their cries slicing through the heat. Few noticed that the air felt heavier, as though it had grown tired of being breathed.
Inside the villas, mosaics shimmered under the shifting light. In one grand home near the Street of the Faun, a fresco of Bacchus seemed almost alive, the god of wine smiling faintly, cup raised in eternal toast. The walls, painted in cinnabar and lapis, told stories of luxury, banquets, dancers, mythic hunts. Art was Pompeii's way of capturing eternity, of preserving joy against the erosion of time. No one imagined that soon these colors would be sealed forever, not by artists' hands, but by ash. As Julia passed by one such villa, she saw a craftsman repairing a mosaic floor. A sea of tiny tiles, each no bigger than a fingernail. He was humming softly, lost in his work. "You rebuild what the earth once took," she said, kindly. "Yes, but the earth always takes it back." His words hung in the air like an uninvited prophecy. That evening, the scent of garlic and wine drifted from the taverns. People laughed and drank and toasted to prosperity. Musicians tuned their lyres for the coming feast. Marcus joined his friends, bragging about his sales. Lucius delivered bread to a wedding feast. And Julia lit candles before her household shrine, thanking the gods for another safe day. Outside, the last light faded behind the mountain, and a cool wind swept through the streets, soft, strange, carrying with it a whisper that no one could name. It was the sound of stone remembering. Deep beneath the earth, the mountain stirred again, not violently, not yet, but with the rhythm of something awakening. The gods had been silent for 800 years. That silence was ending. By early afternoon, the streets of Pompeii shimmered in heat. The sky was a pale blue haze, and even the marble statues seemed to sweat beneath the sun. Julia lifted her robe as she walked toward the Stabian Baths, the city's oldest and most beloved sanctuary of water, built centuries before she was born. The great bronze doors stood open, breathing warmth and the faint perfume of oil and steam into the street. Inside, the light shifted, softer now, filtered through latticed windows and the mist that clung to the air. The baths were more than a place to cleanse. They were a temple of social grace. Every class came here: senators, merchants, slaves, and priestesses, all reduced to the same shimmering skin beneath the water's surface. The echoes of laughter and conversation bounced across marble walls painted with red and ochre scenes of heroes, nymphs, and gods. Julia entered the apoditarium, the changing hall, where women chatted as they unfastened brooches and folded linen garments into baskets. The floor was warm beneath her feet, the gift of the hypocaust, a Roman marvel that carried heat beneath the stone like a living heartbeat. She admired the craftsmanship: terracotta pillars hidden below, channels of smoke weaving unseen, transforming fire into comfort. Steam drifted from the next chamber, where the tepidarium awaited, the warm bath, its air dense with moisture. Julia stepped through, greeted by the hiss of water meeting hot tiles. The walls here were curved, designed to trap heat, their surface covered in delicate frescoes, sea creatures, dolphins, and shells swirling in a dance of color. "Julia," called Octavia, a matron with silver hair pinned high. "You look radiant, my dear. Have you been praying or dreaming?" "Both," Julia smiled, sinking onto a bench. "And you?" "Complaining, as usual," Octavia laughed. "My husband says the gods punish me for talking too much. I say they punish him for listening too little." The women around them giggled, the sound mingling with the steady drip of condensation. Another voice chimed in, young, musical. "Have you heard? The emperor's nephew is visiting Naples. They say he brings architects and poets." "Poets?" Octavia scoffed. "We need better roofs, not better verses." Julia laughed softly. Perhaps the gods prefer beauty to safety. "Then we are all blessed," someone murmured. The air smelled of rose oil and beeswax. Servants poured water into bronze basins, their movements quiet and practiced. In the corner, an old woman hummed a hymn to Venus, rubbing oil into her arms with wrinkled hands. There was something sacred in the ordinary, a stillness that felt almost divine. The caldarium, the hot bath, was ahead, the heart of warmth. Julia entered, and the air embraced her like silk. The pool shimmered beneath the light of a circular oculus in the ceiling, through which a single beam of sunlight fell, illuminating the steam like liquid gold. The women waded in, sighing with pleasure, voices lowering to whispers as if entering a sacred ritual. "It's strange," Octavia said after a while, tracing the water's surface with her fingers. "Sometimes I think the baths breathe with us, as though the walls remember every word we've ever said." Julia nodded, eyes half closed. "Perhaps they do. The gods hear through stone." For a moment, they sat in silence, the kind of silence that feels alive. Then a servant passed by, her tray trembling slightly. The cups rattled. The women glanced up. "Just my clumsy hands," the girl said quickly, forcing a smile. But Julia noticed the water too, rippling, ever so faintly, as if something below had exhaled. The tremor was gentle, barely perceptible, yet it made the lamp flames quiver. Octavia frowned, then shrugged. "The earth stretches. She gets tired too." And with that, the women returned to their talk of fabrics, suns, and dinner plans, as the steam curled above them, soft, golden, and patient. The air within the Stabian baths shimmered like glass. Julia lingered near the edge of the caldarium, tracing the steam that rose in delicate spirals toward the oculus. Above her, the light shifted with the hour, turning gold to amber, amber to rose. Every surface seemed alive, the walls, the columns, the painted gods that looked down with knowing smiles. The frescoes glowed under the heat, their pigments deepened by moisture. Neptune rode a chariot of seahorses, Venus rose from the foam, and Tritons blew their horns into the waves. Each figure was drawn with tenderness,
not the rigid pride of Rome, but the warmth of a city that lived close to the sea. Julia often thought that Pompeii painted differently because it dreamed differently. Here, art was not about power. It was about pleasure, color, and the way sunlight danced on wet marble. She lifted her gaze to the vaulted ceiling, painted in deep blue, scattered with tiny stars. The illusion was perfect. You could forget the stone above you and imagine the open sky. "Magnificent, isn't it?" Octavia said beside her, reclining on the step. "My husband says this ceiling cost more than our entire villa." Julia smiled. "Then he should bathe here more often. It's cheaper than faith." Octavia chuckled, sending ripples across the surface. Perhaps the gods prefer warmth to worship. At the far end of the hall, a mosaic shimmered, a great sea creature curling through waves of black and turquoise. Beneath it, the heating system pulsed. Julia could feel it beneath her feet, the rhythm of fire in its arteries, the hum of the hypocaust that made the air alive. She had once watched the workers feed the flames, slaves covered in soot, their faces glowing orange from the furnace. They kept the water hot for hours, unseen and unsung. Every sigh of comfort above was paid for with sweat below. Julia's fingers brushed the marble ledge, warm and smooth. Fire beneath stone, water above it. The Romans have captured balance itself. "Until the fire escapes," said a younger woman, fanning herself with a towel. The room laughed softly. It was an innocent joke, or so it seemed. In another chamber, the tepidarium, women gathered for conversation. One spoke of her daughter's wedding, another of a new temple being built near the gate of Hercules. "They say the gods will favor Pompeii for another 100 years, she said. Julia listened politely. "The gods favor those who remember humility," she answered. "And when we forget," the woman asked, "they remind us." Her words hung in the steam like perfume. The topic shifted to myths. Venus and Mars caught in their golden net, Hercules defeating the river god Aeschylus. They laughed at the stories, their voices bouncing against the curved walls. Each myth, Julia knew, was both entertainment and a warning. The gods punished beauty without balance, pride without gratitude. And yet, surrounded by luxury, it was easy to forget such lessons. The warmth lulled her. The air seemed thicker now, heavier with heat. Drops of condensation slid down the frescoes like tears. Julia closed her eyes, listening to the sound of water lapping gently against stone. Somewhere in the distance, she thought she heard a deep murmur, not from the voices of women, but from beneath the earth itself. When she opened her eyes, the ripples had vanished. The pool was still, but her heart wasn't. "Do you hear that?" she asked Octavia. "Hear what, dear?" Julia hesitated. "Nothing. It must have been the pipes." She forced a smile. But in that moment, a single bubble rose from the center of the bath, broke, and was gone. A servant nearby crossed herself and whispered a prayer to Neptune. The others laughed it off, returning to their gossip. Yet, as Julia stepped out of the water, she noticed the lamps, their flames leaning slightly east, as if drawn by a breath no one could feel.
By mid-afternoon, the baths had grown quieter. Most of the morning crowd had gone, leaving behind only the lingering perfume of oil and laughter fading into the walls. Julia remained, sitting by the edge of the frigidarium, the cold bath, where marble figures of dolphins and swans guarded the pool. The air here was different, clear and sharp, almost sacred after the thick heat of the caldarium. She dipped her fingers into the water, gasping softly at its chill. Ripples spread outward, distorting the reflection of the vaulted ceiling. Above her, the fresco shimmered with pale blues and silvers, depicting the ocean calm under the gaze of Neptune. His trident pointed upward, as if to pierce the heavens. Julia watched the painted sea move with the light, mesmerized. Around her, a few women whispered softly. Their voices were low, heavy with the drowsy peace that follows warmth. "The air feels strange today," one murmured, rubbing her arm. "Too heavy for summer." "It's the heat," another replied, eyes half closed. "The air always thickens before the sea breeze returns." Yet Julia noticed something else. The sound of dripping had changed. It came slower now, deeper, echoing faintly through the stone corridors like the heartbeat of the building. She rose, wrapping her robe around her shoulders, and wandered toward the corridor leading to the palaestra, the open courtyard. The air cooled as she walked, her sandals tapping softly against the floor. The great bath complex stretched like a living organism, chambers for warmth, for water, for rest. Beneath it all, the hypocaust breathed fire. She could feel it, faintly, like a pulse beneath her feet. Every few moments, the rhythm stuttered, just slightly, as if the earth below it had taken a deeper breath. At the doorway, Julia paused. The courtyard outside was drenched in sunlight, yet the light felt muted, filtered through a strange pale veil. A flock of pigeons burst suddenly from the roof, scattering into the air. For a heartbeat, everything went silent. No voices, no laughter, not even the familiar hiss of steam. Then, as if nothing had happened, life resumed. The women in the baths spoke again. The servants moved. The fountains flowed. But Julia could not shake the sense that something had just blinked. The city itself closing its eyes for a moment. She returned to the tepidarium, now mostly empty. The air was thick with the memory of heat. A lone servant scrubbed the tiles, humming a tune that sounded like a prayer. "It's quiet," Julia said softly. The girl nodded. "The quiet before evening, mistress. Pompeii always sleeps for a moment before it wakes again." Julia smiled faintly, though her heart disagreed. The quiet did not feel like rest. It felt like waiting. She looked around the chamber one last time. Every color,
Every scent, every sound seemed sharper. The glimmer of oil on the water's surface, the gold leaf catching light, the scent of rose clinging to the walls. It was beauty at its fullest, poised on the edge of something unseen. She left the baths slowly, stepping out into the fading heat of the street. Behind her, the doors closed with a sigh. The sound echoed longer than it should have, rolling softly through the marble hallways. Inside, the steam hung motionless, no longer rising, no longer swirling, as if the air itself had forgotten to move.
The afternoon sun slanted across the rooftops of Pompeii, turning the streets into rivers of gold. Heat shimmered on the stones as Lucius worked in the bakery of Modestus, sleeves rolled up, arms dusted white with flour. The rhythm of kneading echoed through the small chamber, a steady human sound that filled the silence between heartbeats. The air smelled of yeast, ash, and grain. In the corner, the great stone mill turned slowly, pulled by a patient donkey. Its wooden gears creaked in rhythm, grinding the wheat into a fine powder that drifted through the light like smoke. Lucius hummed softly as he worked, pressing the dough, folding, shaping. The Romans treated bread not as food alone, but as a sacred ritual, a link between man, earth, and fire. He moved the loaves into the domed oven, its mouth glowing orange. Each loaf bore the mark of the wooden stamp, 8 equal divisions meant for fair sharing. Bread for families, bread for soldiers, bread for the gods, Lucius whispered. Outside, the streets pulsed with late afternoon life. A fruit seller called out by the fountain, her voice mixing with the clang of bronze from a blacksmith shop. Children ran barefoot through the dust, chasing a rolling hoop. In front of one doorway, a black and white mosaic warned, "Cave Canum," beware of the dog. But the dog lying beside it was asleep, its tail twitching as it dreamed. Julia passed by on her way home from the temple, pausing to greet Lucius through the open archway. "Still baking in this heat?" she teased. "Always," he said, smiling. "The gods don't eat prayers, they eat bread." She laughed, and the sound drifted down the street, carried by the soft breeze. Yet beneath that gentle air, the ground felt heavier. Dust clung more stubbornly to skin, the light sharper, almost metallic. Near the edge of town, the grand Villa of the Mysteries basked in sunlight. Within its walls, frescoes glowed with color, reds so deep they seemed to pulse, figures of women and gods frozen mid-dance. The mural of the Dionysian rites stretched across the chamber, a young woman blindfolded, another crowned with ivy, a satyr whispering secrets. The painter had captured not just myth, but movement, the trembling moment between surrender and revelation. To stand before it was to feel the world tilt between mortal and divine. Julia often visited this villa for its quiet beauty. Today, she lingered before the fresco, fingers tracing the cool wall. "Dionysus," she murmured, "Lord of ecstasy and ruin, do you still dance for us?" Her voice faded into the still air. No echo answered. Farther south, the House of the Faun stood in stately silence. Its mosaic of Alexander's conquest shimmered with detail. The clash of armies, the flash of bronze, the eyes of kings locked in eternal battle. To Romans, art was memory carved into permanence. Yet Julia couldn't help but notice the faint tremble in the mosaic tiles when she leaned close, as if the heroes themselves were shifting in their sleep. Down the same street, the house of the tragic poet bore another message in black tesserae: Have, welcome. Its tiny atrium opened to sunlight, where a young girl sat reading verses from Virgil, her voice gentle and clear. Arma virumque cano, she recited, I sing of arms and the man. Her mother smiled from the doorway, brushing olive leaves from her tunic. Life, it seemed, was poetry itself. The hum of the city deepened, merchants calling, donkeys braying, fountains whispering. Yet amid all it, one sound had gone missing. The birds. The sparrows that perched on roof tiles each afternoon were gone. The pigeons that fed by the forum had taken flight. Even the crows were silent. For the first time that day, Pompeii sounded hollow, like a song that had forgotten its melody. Lucius stepped outside, wiping his brow. The air felt heavy, though the sky remained impossibly blue. He looked up at the mountain, its peak veiled in a thin white haze. He thought it looked beautiful, almost peaceful. Then he turned back to his oven, unaware that in the quiet sky above him, the birds had stopped singing.
The sun began its slow descent over Pompeii, stretching shadows across mosaicked floors and marble courtyards. Inside the grand villas, the walls glowed like honey, frescoes alive under the fading light. In the House of the Faun, servants moved quietly, polishing bronze lamps and arranging fruit for the evening meal. The scent of figs and baked bread drifted through the atrium, mingling with the faint echo of a lyre being tuned somewhere beyond the peristyle. A mosaic of dancing fawns shimmered underfoot, their joyful expressions caught mid-step. The air was heavy with wealth and ease, but also, without reason, a strange stillness. Lucius delivered his bread here sometimes, walking barefoot on these same marble floors. He used to marvel at the luxury, the polished columns, the fountains carved into nymphs. Yet today, as he carried a basket of loaves through the doorway, the villa felt different, quieter, as though it were listening. "Leave them by the table," the steward said, distracted. "And tell your master the villa of Holconius needs 3 more tomorrow." Lucius nodded and turned to leave, glancing once more at the mosaic of the faun frozen mid-dance. For a heartbeat, he thought he saw its eyes glint, not with joy, but with something that looked almost afraid. In another part of the city, the house of the tragic poet bathed in amber light. Its famous cave canem mosaic guarded the entrance, though no one noticed that the tiles around it had begun to crack, fine as spider silk. Inside, a young boy sat by the impluvium, the central pool that caught rain, drawing tiny figures in the dust. His father, a poet of modest fame, was dictating lines to a scribe. "Write this," he said softly. "The gods speak not in thunder, but in waiting." The scribe looked up. "It sounds unfinished, master."
So is life, the poet murmured. From the street came the faint clatter of a cart, the laughter of a girl carrying garlands of laurel. A moment later, silence swallowed both. Julia, on her way home, paused at the Villa of the Mysteries once more. The air inside was cool and perfumed with age. She stood before the fresco again, the girl with the blindfold, the satyr leaning close, the whip raised in ritual ecstasy. The painting seemed to pulse in the dim light. There was motion within the stillness, as if the figures were preparing to step forward from the wall. The red background, once a color of joy, now looked darker, deeper, almost alive. Julia reached out, her hand trembling slightly. The wall felt warm to the touch. She withdrew it quickly, blinking in confusion. Outside, the world looked unchanged. A merchant shouted by the gate. A woman haggled over olive oil. Yet the air carried a hum, low, steady, like the sound one hears before a storm. In the poorer quarter, near the Herculaneum gate, the scene was different. Children chased each other between stalls, their laughter echoing off the worn stones. A potter shaped clay on his wheel, humming. A fisherman mended his nets. These people had little, yet their lives were full of motion, of habit, of survival. A mother called her son inside. "Wash your hands before dinner!" The boy ran past a wall painted with a faded image of Mercury, god of travelers. He looked up at the figure and whispered, "Keep us safe." His voice was small, but the wish carried weight. The wind had changed direction. It came now from the north, cool, dry, and oddly silent. Dust rose along the streets, swirling at ankle height. Lucius noticed it as he walked home, his breadbasket empty. He turned his face toward the mountain. A white wisp coiled from its summit, thin, harmless, like breath on glass. He frowned. "Smoke?" he murmured. A woman nearby followed his gaze, then laughed nervously. "Vesuvius smokes when he dreams," she said. "Let him dream." But when Lucius passed the fountain in the Forum, he noticed something unsettling. The water no longer flowed evenly. It trembled, forming tiny circles that broke and reformed as if stirred by an invisible hand. The marble basin shivered once, softly, then stilled again. He stood there for a moment, listening. The city was quiet, too quiet. The dogs no longer barked. The birds were gone. Even the cicadas had fallen silent. Pompeii was holding its breath.
Evening crept over Pompeii like silk. The sunlight, once golden, now turned strange, pale, metallic, almost bruised. The air was still thick with heat, yet beneath it lay something heavier, something alive. People began to notice, though none could explain. A merchant, standing by the Forum, rubbed his arms. "The wind's gone," he muttered. "Feels like the air's holding its breath." His apprentice laughed uneasily, but his eyes kept darting to the mountain. The white plume that had seemed so soft an hour ago was darker now, curling upward in slow, deliberate spirals. Julia sat in her garden, watching the shadows of olive branches dance across the mosaic floor. The fountain no longer sang. The water sputtered, then stilled, a single drop falling and echoing louder than it should have. Her cat lifted its head, ears twitching. Even the insects had stopped their endless hum. She whispered a prayer to Vesta, goddess of the hearth. "Keep the flame," she said softly, though she did not know why her hands were trembling. Across the city, Lucius was closing his bakery. The last loaves had cooled on the shelf, their crusts hard and fragrant. He swept the floor, humming, trying to ignore the silence outside. The donkey refused to move. It stood near the mill, eyes wide, nostrils flaring. "Come now," Lucius coaxed. "You've worked harder on hotter days." But the animal only stamped its hoof uneasily. Then, faintly, the ground murmured. A long, low sound, more felt than heard. The clay jars on the shelf rattled. A single grain sack toppled, spilling flour like a ghost across the floor. Lucius froze. The sound faded as quickly as it came, leaving only the ringing in his ears. He looked outside. The sky had changed again, no longer blue, but the color of ash diluted in wine. Over the city, the pigeons flew low, circling, confused. Julia stepped into the street, meeting her neighbor Octavia, who held her shawl tightly. "Did you feel it?" Octavia asked. "It was nothing," Julia lied, though her pulse betrayed her. "Just the earth turning." "The earth doesn't turn like that," Octavia said, glancing upward. Above them, Mount Vesuvius stood perfectly still, too still. No birds crossed its slope now. No wind touched its summit. The smoke rose straight into the sky, thin at first, then thickening, twisting like an enormous column. Somewhere in the distance, a dog began to howl, one long, mournful note that carried across the rooftops. The city listened, but no one spoke. In the Villa of the Mysteries, a single oil lamp flickered before the fresco of Dionysus. Its flame leaned sideways, straining toward the east. For a moment, the painted god seemed to smile wider, too wide. The light shifted, and the illusion vanished. At the same time, near the Forum baths, the marble basins began to ripple again, perfectly circular waves moving outward from no visible source. The water's surface mirrored the clouds above, not white, but gray, swelling outward from the mountain like ink dropped in clear glass. Julia clutched the small bronze amulet around her neck, an image of Fortuna. If it's a sign," she whispered, "let it be mercy." From the bakery, Lucius looked once more toward the north. A faint rumble reached him, deeper than thunder, softer than the sea. It seemed to come from everywhere at once. He turned to the apprentice beside him. "Go home," he said quietly. "Tell your mother to stay inside." The apprentice hesitated. "It's nothing, master, isn't it?" Lucius didn't answer. The rumble grew like the roll of a distant drum. And then, just as suddenly, silence again. The stillness was unbearable, vast and absolute, pressing against the chest. In that moment, all of Pompeii stood suspended, the merchants with coins in their hands, the children holding half-finished games, the women stirring pots over fires that no longer crackled. The sun slipped behind the horizon. A crimson edge lit the mountain. Then came the sound, a sharp crack, clear and cold, like the world itself splitting open. The first ashes fell unseen in the darkening sky.
Around 1 in the afternoon, the earth shuddered. Not violently, but enough for dust to fall from doorframes and ripples to dance across cups of wine. In Pompeii, no one screamed. They had felt worse. 17 years earlier, an earthquake had torn the city apart, and they had rebuilt. So this was nothing. Merchants steadied their tables. Women clutched the edges of water jars, waiting for the tremor to pass. When it did, they laughed softly, brushing flour or ash from their shoulders. Life resumed as if nothing had happened. Yet the animals knew better. In the stables near the city's edge, horses stamped and pulled at their ropes, eyes rolling white. The ground beneath their hooves seemed to hum, a rhythm older than memory. Dogs barked without reason, straining toward the north where the mountain loomed. A flock of pigeons burst suddenly from the roof of the amphitheater, wheeling in frantic circles before disappearing toward the sea. Marcus stood in his warehouse, watching the sacks of grain sway gently on their ropes. The tremor had loosened one beam, but the structure held. He exhaled, half in relief, half in denial. His assistant urged him to leave. "Everyone's heading home, sir. Maybe we should close early." Marcus shook his head. "No. If people are frightened, they'll want bread and oil. Fear makes the stomach loud." He smiled, but the sound of his voice felt strange, hollow in the air that no longer carried the city's usual hum. He turned back to his ledger, forcing calm. Outside, the streets shimmered in the sunlight, but the light itself had changed. It no longer felt warm. It pressed down like a weight. Julia, meanwhile, had gone to the temple of Isis. The earthquake had shaken loose a few tiles, and the priestesses were sweeping them aside, whispering prayers. The temple was her refuge, cool stone, the scent of myrrh and incense, the steady flicker of lamps. She knelt before the statue of Isis, the goddess's face serene, her arms outstretched in blessing. "Mother of the sky," Julia whispered, "if the earth moves, let your hands hold us still." The air inside the temple felt charged, not like the calm before prayer, but like the sky before lightning. Her veil lifted slightly, though no wind blew. From outside came the faint ringing of a bronze bell, swinging on its own. Julia opened her eyes and saw that the flame in the lamp nearest her had turned blue at its edges. She closed her eyes again and prayed harder. In the forum, the chatter had dimmed. Vendors watched the mountain while pretending not to. Children played with pebbles but glanced often at the horizon. The usual smells of Pompeii, bread, wine, sweat, sea salt, were all there, but something had changed. The air felt heavy, electric. It clung to the skin. The sky above Vesuvius glowed faintly yellow, as though the sun were setting too soon. Marcus stepped outside his warehouse, shading his eyes. He could see it now, not smoke exactly, but a shimmer, a faint distortion of air above the peak. It reminded him of heat rising from a forge, though the mountain was miles away. He frowned, hand resting on the wooden doorframe, feeling it tremble faintly under his palm. He thought of Julia and of her endless faith, of her calm voice telling him that the gods speak through signs if only one listens. But Marcus did not listen. He stayed, because his ledger was full, his storerooms heavy, and fear, he believed, was for the poor. In the deep earth beneath him, pressure was building, silent, invisible. The magma chamber beneath Vesuvius had been restless for days, its molten core rising, straining against rock sealed for centuries. Each tremor was a warning, a whisper from below, ignored by men who believed they had mastered stone. Above the city, the sky shimmered again, and the first faint gust of sulfur brushed the air, unnoticed or mistaken for the scent of the bakeries firing their afternoon loaves.
By mid-afternoon, the tremors returned, gentle, then stronger. Tiles rattled, doors swayed, and the fountain splashed without wind. Yet still, the people of Pompeii did not panic. They had lived on this land their entire lives. The mountain had always been there, patient and sleeping, a god turned to stone. What danger could come from something so eternal? In the marketplace, a few women gathered near the olive stalls, whispering about the strange air. "It feels wrong," one said, pressing her hand to her chest, "as if the sky is heavier." Her friend shrugged. "It's the heat. Even the gods sweat today." They laughed, but the sound was hollow. A nearby vendor cursed as his scales tilted on their own. "The ground moves like a drunkard," he grumbled, adjusting them. A few jars rolled off their tables, breaking into red shards. Children squealed, half in fear, half in delight, and chased them like a game. But the laughter soon faded when a horse screamed from the stables.
Its sound cut through the air like metal tearing. Dogs barked in answer, one after another, until the streets trembled with noise. Birds fled toward the sea, forming black ribbons against the pale sky. Marcus stepped outside again, his heart pounding. The noise, the movement, the strange brightness of the day, all of it pressed on him like a fever dream. He looked toward the mountain. The plume of smoke had changed shape again, thicker now, like an unfurling tree. The base of it glowed faintly red. "It's the sun," he told himself, "just the sun." He turned back to his warehouse, but the floor rippled beneath him. Barrels shook. A jar crashed. For a moment, the entire world seemed to breathe in and out, slow and deep. The trembling stopped, and an unnatural quiet followed. Marcus leaned on the wall, sweat cold on his neck. He should have left, but he couldn't. To leave was to admit fear, and fear was an enemy worse than any mountain. Across the city, Julia stood before the temple's courtyard. The statue of Isis now bore a crack across its arm. A priestess wept silently, gathering fallen petals from the offering bowls. Julia touched the stone gently, as if soothing a wound. "The gods do not fall," she whispered. Yet even as she said it, the ground vibrated again, softly, rhythmically, as though the earth itself had a heartbeat. The lamps around the altar flickered, their flames bending as one toward the north. A low hum filled the temple, not human, not quite natural, a vibration that came from deep below. The women looked at one another. No one spoke. In the streets outside, the smell of sulfur thickened. People began to cough. Some laughed it off. "The baker's oven smokes too much." But others pulled their children close. Horses refused to drink, kicking at troughs. The mules that carried grain froze mid-step. A flock of crows circled above the forum, screeching before vanishing into the darkening haze. The air no longer moved. It hung, heavy, dense, alive with unseen motion. A physician walking near the baths stopped to observe the trembling of the ground. He had studied the great quake years before and knew the signs. "The chambers below," he murmured, "are stirring." He imagined the layers of stone and magma beneath them, the slow accumulation of pressure, the gases building in pockets of molten rock. In his mind's eye, the mountain was breathing, its lungs filling, its chest straining. But he said nothing. To speak of it would bring panic. Instead, he quickened his pace toward home, pretending calm. The tremor came again, sharper this time, enough to make the fountain spill and the mosaics on villa floors crack along their seams. A merchant cried out as an amphora of wine toppled and shattered.
blood-red liquid spilling like sacrifice onto the stones. The sky dimmed suddenly, though the sun had not yet set. People looked upward. The light had changed once more, not golden, not gray, but something in between, like smoke mixed with honey. For a heartbeat, everything glowed. Then, just as quickly, the glow faded, replaced by shadow. The air itself seemed to hum, faintly, steadily, as though the world had been turned into a single, waiting note.
The air changed first. It was the kind of stillness that made even the smallest sound echo too loudly. The shuffle of sandals, the creak of wooden carts, the whisper of cloth. Above Pompeii, the sky had turned a color no one could name. Not blue, not gray, but something heavy, like smoke soaked with sunlight. It pressed down on the city, making every breath feel earned. Julia walked along the temple steps, her white robe brushing the stone. The scent of incense had grown sharp, biting. "Perhaps the gods are warning us," a younger priestess murmured beside her. Julia said nothing. She looked toward the mountain. It was quiet, too quiet. Even the birds were gone. The silence was almost holy, and that frightened her most. In the bakery of Modestus, Lucius was kneading dough when the light shifted. The sunlight that had poured through the small window dimmed, replaced by something yellow and strange. He wiped the sweat from his brow and stepped outside. The street was still, though not empty. People stood frozen, looking up. The peak of Vesuvius was crowned with a pale mist, swirling like breath in winter air. It seemed harmless, beautiful even, until it moved. The mist rose higher, spreading like ink in water. Lucius blinked. "It's only a cloud," someone said. "Only a cloud." But no one moved. The horses were the first to scream again. Then came the dogs. Somewhere, a woman shouted a name, a child's name, and the sound cut through the stillness like a blade. Marcus appeared from his warehouse, eyes narrowed. He looked up and saw it. The plume, no longer faint, now dark and alive, twisting upward in a spiral that widened by the heartbeat. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, as if the earth exhaled, a distant thunder rolled from the mountain. It wasn't the crack of a storm. It was deeper, older, the sound of something vast remembering its voice. The ground trembled underfoot. Dust fell from rooftops. A jug shattered near Marcus's feet. He didn't move. He couldn't. It was as though the air itself had turned to stone. In the forum, Julia knelt instinctively. "Isis, protect us," she whispered. The priestesses followed, their voices trembling, lost in the rising roar that came from within the earth. In that instant, Pompeii held its breath. The volcano's heart, sealed for 8 centuries, had broken open. But the people did not know. They saw only beauty, the dark pillar rising into the heavens, scattering sunlight into gold and crimson. Some pointed, some prayed,
Some cheered, thinking it a sign. A merchant laughed nervously. "Look, the gods are lighting torches in the sky," he said. But the torches did not fade, they multiplied. Ash began to fall, soft as snow at first, gray and harmless. Children caught it on their tongues, giggling. Old women smiled. "Winter in summer," they said. No one realized it was the breath of the mountain, fine particles of glass and fire. The air burned without flame. The day dimmed. The city, once full of life, now moved as if in a dream. People drifted through the streets, half curious, half fearful, their shadows stretching long under the strange amber light. Marcus looked up once more, his heart heavy. He thought of Julia, of her prayers, of the quiet faith she carried like a lamp through the dark. Perhaps she was right, he thought. Perhaps the gods do speak, only in tongues men choose not to hear. He turned toward the mountain again. The sound had changed, not thunder now, but something deeper, rhythmic, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. The pigeons had vanished, the seabirds fled. Only the wind remained, a hot, dry wind that smelled of sulfur and stone. And then, for the first time, Marcus saw lightning, not in the clouds, but inside the column of smoke itself. It forked downward, white and silent, swallowed by the rising ash. The air remembered fire, and Pompeii, beautiful and doomed, stood waiting beneath it.
At exactly 1 in the afternoon, the mountains split the sky. It began with a sound too deep to be thunder, a roar that seemed to rise from the bones of the earth itself. The air vibrated, the ground flexed as if breathing. People stopped mid-step. Birds vanished into the horizon. And then, above the sleeping giant, a column of darkness burst upward, wide as the city itself, glowing from within. The Plinian eruption had begun. Pliny the Younger, writing from across the bay in Misenum, would later describe it. A cloud of unusual size and shape rose, like a pine tree, the trunk rising high, then branching into the sky. But in Pompeii, there was no poetry, only awe. The sound rolled through streets like the voice of a god waking after centuries of silence. The cloud climbed higher and higher, stretching 33 kilometers into the heavens. It turned day into dusk. Light became amber, then gray, then gone. From the forum to the farmlands, people gazed upward, their faces painted by the strange glow of the rising column. For a brief moment, there was silence again, the kind that makes one believe the worst has passed. But then the rain began, not of water, but of stone. Tiny white pumice, light as ash, sharp as glass, started to fall, first gently, then faster. It clattered on rooftops, bounced off marble, filled the air with a dry hiss. At first, children laughed. They reached up,
catching the soft gray snow that melted into dust on their fingers. But when the stones grew larger, thumb-sized, fist-sized, laughter turned to fear. People ran for cover. Shops closed their shutters. Dogs howled from within courtyards. Julia, standing at the temple gate, shielded her face. The air was full of dust, the sky flickering with lightning that seemed trapped inside the cloud. The goddess's statue behind her was almost invisible now, swallowed by darkness and drifting ash. "Go," she called to the younger priestesses. "Find the children. Bring them here." Her voice, calm yet commanding, rose above the chaos. Women ran, gathering the small and the frightened. Some clutched infants wrapped in linen. Others led the blind and the old. The temple bells began to ring, not struck by hand, but by the shaking of the earth. Marcus was in his warehouse when the first pumice stones hit the roof. The sound was strange, hollow, rhythmic, like 1,000 hands drumming on wood. He looked up, heart racing. Dust seeped through the beams. "Cover the goods," he shouted. His men obeyed, dragging cloth over amphorae of oil and sacks of grain. But the stones grew heavier. One punched through the roof, landing near his feet. He bent to pick it up. It was warm, not red hot, not burning, but alive, as if holding the breath of the mountain itself. He dropped it instantly. Outside, people screamed and prayed. The sky rumbled with lightning that flashed silently within the dark tower. Pumice fell thicker, faster, until the streets were carpeted in white dust. The city of Pompeii, once colorful and loud, became a ghost of itself, muffled by ash and fear. Still, some stayed calm. "It will stop," a merchant said. "It always stops." But even as he spoke, the mountain roared again, a deep, rolling sound that made the air tremble and the heart shrink. The gods, it seemed, had found their voice once more.
The city was now wrapped in twilight, though the sun still stood high above the cloud. The column of smoke had spread wide, drifting like a living thing, its shadow swallowing fields and villas. From its depths came the steady fall of pumice, thousands upon thousands of white stones raining upon Pompeii, each carrying the whisper of the mountain's heart. Roofs began to crack under the weight. Terracotta tiles slid off and shattered on the streets. The air shimmered with dust. Breathing became effort. Every inhale carried grit, the faint taste of salt and sulfur. Marcus tied a wet cloth around his face. His men had already fled, leaving the warehouse half covered. "Cowards," he muttered, though he couldn't blame them. The stones struck harder now, some as large as apples, others jagged and hot. The roof groaned. He ran to the door, pulling it shut against the storm of debris, but the hinges screamed in protest. Outside, the sound was constant, a chorus of impacts, thunder and distant cries. He thought of his wife,
lost years ago to illness, and of Julia, that strange, steady woman who still believed the gods could hear. "If they listen," he said under his breath, "let them hold the skies steady." But the sky did not steady. It rumbled, deep and endless. The streets outside were unrecognizable. Statues had vanished beneath gray mounds. Gardens lay buried. The fountains still ran, but their water turned black from falling ash. Julia moved through the chaos like a lantern in fog. Her robe, once white, was now gray. She guided people toward the temple, mothers with infants, old men bent over sticks, servants carrying what little they could. "Here," she called, waving them inside. "The walls are strong. Stay close." The temple's marble floor was slick with dust, the air heavy with the scent of burning resin. Every few moments, a tremor passed beneath their feet, like the breath of something immense turning in sleep. One child asked, "Is it night already?" Julia knelt, brushing ash from the girl's hair. "Not yet," she said softly. "The sun is only resting." Outside, a young man, a baker's apprentice, ran through the square clutching a loaf of bread as if it were treasure. It was still warm. He had taken it from the oven just as the stones began to fall. The loaf steamed faintly, absurdly alive amid the dying city. He slipped, fell, and the bread rolled into the ash. He sat there for a moment, stunned, watching it disappear. Then he began to laugh, a small, broken laugh that carried farther than it should have. Julia heard it. For a heartbeat, it sounded like hope. The air darkened further. The pumice no longer glowed white, but gray, then brown, then black. They fell thicker now, heavier, like the heartbeat of the earth growing faster. In the distance, lightning twisted through the column, silent, blinding, blooming and vanishing like the breath of a god. Marcus stumbled through the streets, shielding his head with his arms. His warehouse was gone now, buried under stone. "Take what matters," he shouted to anyone who could hear. "Leave the rest." But no one answered. The roads were nearly empty. Those who hadn't fled to the countryside were huddled in doorways, faces pale under a sky that no longer belonged to the sun. The world had turned to shadow and dust. Above it all, Vesuvius roared again. Not a single eruption, but a sustained voice, endless and ancient, echoing across the bay. And through it, faint but clear, came the cry of a woman. "Julia, over here!" It was Marcus, his voice hoarse, carrying across the storm. She turned, eyes wide, ash falling like snow between them. For a moment their gazes met, two souls surrounded by firelight and silence. Then another tremor came, stronger than before, and the city shifted again.
The sky had turned to night. It was not the soft blue of dusk, nor the velvet dark of evening. It was ash, thick, moving, endless. The air was full of whispers, the hiss of falling stone,
the faint crackle of fire where roofs had begun to burn. The volcano's column now loomed higher than sight, spreading like a vast umbrella across the heavens. Pliny the Younger, far away across the bay, would later write that the cloud changed its shape and color, sometimes white, sometimes dark and spotted, depending on the earth and ashes it carried. But in Pompeii, no one saw the beauty of it. They saw only shadow, a sky that had turned against them. Marcus reached Julia at the temple steps, his face gray with dust. She was helping an old woman climb inside, her hands trembling, but her voice calm. "You shouldn't be here," she said when she saw him. The gods are busy," Marcus interrupted gently. "But I can help." Together they guided people through the heavy air. The ground quivered beneath them with each distant explosion. From time to time, a low rumble passed through the earth, shaking the pillars like breath through lungs. Inside the temple, families huddled in silence. Children slept on their mothers' laps, their hair silvered with ash. Someone sang softly, a hymn, old and uncertain. The melody floated through the smoky air, trembling but unbroken. Outside, the city was disappearing. The amphitheater lay buried to its knees in pumice. The forum was covered in drifts of gray dust, statues half submerged like forgotten gods. Fires flickered in upper floors where roofs had caved in, sending sparks swirling into the dark. The fountains had fallen silent, the water choked with debris. And still, the mountain roared. A pulse of light flashed across the cloud, silent lightning illuminating the ash like frozen thunder. Julia looked toward it and whispered, "It's beautiful." Marcus turned to her, surprised. Her face was streaked with gray, her eyes shining faintly in the dim glow. "Even the end," she said, "tries to be beautiful." He wanted to answer, but words felt small. The air pressed down like a weight, hot and heavy, smelling of stone and smoke. They could feel the city shrinking, not in size, but in sound. Fewer voices, fewer footsteps. Silence expanding. The pumice now covered the streets knee-deep, then waist-deep. Houses groaned under the strain, their walls crumbling inward. "We have to move higher," Marcus said. Julia nodded. Together they led a small group, a handful of women, children, an old man clutching a small idol, up the slope behind the temple toward the terrace of a villa overlooking the sea. The air there was no cleaner, but it was open. They could see the bay faintly glowing from distant fires. Across the water, lightning revealed the outline of Mount Vesuvius, alive, furious, magnificent. "From here," Julia murmured, "it almost looks asleep." Marcus laughed softly, the sound half sorrow, half wonder. "Then let's not wake it." They sat together for a moment, the ash falling like slow rain around them. It gathered in their hair, their clothes, their hands, a gray snow that would never melt. Below them, Pompeii was vanishing, street by street, breath by breath, under a blanket of stone and time. The mountain's voice began to fade, its roar becoming a hum, then a whisper. And in that stillness, Julia spoke again, so softly he almost didn't hear. Maybe the gods are not angry. Maybe they are remembering. Marcus looked at her. Remembering what? Us, she said. The sound of our prayers. He looked out over the city that had once been full of laughter and trade and song, and felt something between grief and peace. Then let them remember well, he said. The last of the light flickered, then went out. Above them the sky glowed faintly red, the breath of the volcano pulsing like a dying heart. And beneath it, Pompeii slept.
In the darkness, Pompeii's true character emerged, not in panic, but in the quiet acts of courage that would be frozen forever. By nightfall, the city had vanished beneath 3 meters of pumice. The roofs had given way first, collapsing under the weight of the white stones. Homes that had stood for generations fell in silence, one after another, their timbers snapping like bones. The air was thick, not just with ash, but with absence. Every sound seemed swallowed before it could echo. The world had turned to dust. The stars were gone. The sea was gone. Even the mountain itself was only a shadow against deeper shadow. Marcus stumbled through the narrow street, the pumice rising almost to his knees. Each step was slow, dragging. He carried a small oil lamp, its flame flickering weakly in the wind. Around him, Pompeii no longer looked like a city. It looked like the inside of a dream. Walls half buried, doors sealed by ash, faces pressed to windows that would never open again. He coughed, his lungs burning from the sulfur that hung like poison in the air. Somewhere behind him, a roof gave way with a dull crash. He did not look back. He moved toward the crypto porticus, the underground corridor beneath a wealthy villa, once a cool refuge from the summer heat. Now it might be the only place left to breathe. Inside, the air was damp and stale, but it was air. A few others had found their way there. 2 women, a child clutching a doll, a fisherman still holding his net. They said nothing, only nodded when Marcus entered. The lamp cast trembling shadows on the curved walls. Dust drifted down like snow. He handed the lamp to the child. "Keep this close," he said quietly. "It's the last sun we have." Meanwhile, at the temple, Julia remained. Most of the others had fled hours ago, but a small group stayed. The sick, the elderly, those too weak to run. The roof trembled above them, groaning under the weight. She led them in prayer, her voice steady, though the ground still shifted. "Isis," she whispered, "Mother of mercy, watch over your children." A gust of wind blew through the broken doorway, scattering ash like gray feathers. The lamps dimmed. A woman sobbed quietly in the corner. Julia took her hand. "We are not forgotten," she said. "The gods remember." Outside, the air shimmered with heat. Pyroclastic clouds began to descend the mountain slope, rolling waves of gas and ash glowing faintly in the darkness. They did not reach the city yet, but the wind carried their breath, hot, dry, metallic.
Across town, Lucius the baker had sealed himself and his family inside the bakery cellar. The stone walls held firm, though the ceiling creaked with falling debris. His wife held their youngest close. "It's only dust," he lied softly. "It will pass." He reached for her hand in the dark, feeling the warmth of life still there. Above them, the world groaned. The night deepened, pressing tighter, heavier, and still people moved. Strangers helping strangers, hands reaching blindly in the ash to lift one another from the falling streets. Some prayed, some whispered songs to calm the children. Others simply sat in silence, waiting for dawn that would never come.
By midnight, the air had begun to burn, not with flames, but with heat, invisible, suffocating, alive. The first pyroclastic surge rolled down the mountain like a wave of breath from the underworld. It was fast, silent, and merciless, sweeping through the outskirts before the city could even understand it had arrived. Those who were still outside never felt fire, only a sudden stillness, as if the air itself had turned solid. In the temple, Julia felt it first. A tremor, then a rush of wind that smelled of iron and salt. The lamps flickered out. The air grew thick. "Cover your mouths," she whispered to the few who remained. "Stay low." The marble beneath them vibrated like a living thing. Somewhere outside, the sound of falling stone became distant, replaced by the low hiss of ash meeting heat. The temple doors slammed shut under the pressure of the wind. Darkness followed, pure and complete. Julia's heart pounded, but her voice stayed calm. "Hold each other," she said. "We are not alone." Around her, people reached for hands they could not see. In the crypt below, the statues of Isis and Osiris stood silent, their outlines softening under the falling ash. The smell of burning oil and resin filled the air, the scent of devotion turning into smoke. Outside, Marcus crouched inside the cryptoporticus, his arms wrapped around the child he had found. The heat seeped through the stone walls, though the surge had not yet reached them. The child coughed, her small chest rising fast. "Breathe slow," he said softly. "Pretend we're sleeping." He tore a strip from his tunic, soaked it in water, and pressed it over her mouth. The fisherman muttered a prayer in Greek, hands shaking. One of the women began to hum, a lullaby, cracked and trembling, but it steadied their hearts. The sound of it rose and fell with the rhythm of the trembling earth. When the second shock came, the lamps went out. Absolute darkness. The child gripped Marcus's hand. "Is it morning?"
she whispered. "Not yet, but it will be soon." He didn't believe it, but lies told with kindness are also a kind of truth. In the bakery, Lucius was awake, though his wife and children slept beside him. The air in the cellar had grown hotter, and the stone walls sweated moisture. Above, he could hear the muffled collapse of buildings, slow, final. He ran his hand over his son's hair. "Stay asleep," he whispered. "Dream of the river." He thought of the mornings when he rose before dawn to light the ovens, the smell of bread, the laughter of his apprentices, the sound of the city waking. It all felt impossibly distant now, yet in his mind it was clear, a memory warm enough to keep the dark at bay. He prayed not for rescue, but for peace. Outside, the ash had grown heavier, falling like thick rain. The wind hissed through empty streets. Windows shattered. Columns fell in slow motion, their crashes muffled by layers of dust. Pompeii was dissolving, not burning, but being erased, grain by grain, breath by breath. Yet within the destruction, something sacred persisted. The way people reached out for one another in the dark. The quiet prayers whispered to gods and to memory. The warmth of a hand, the promise of care. Even as the air turned poisonous, there was humanity, fragile, luminous, unyielding.
By the time the first surge had passed, there was no light left in Pompeii, not from the stars, not from the moon, not from the living. The city was wrapped in darkness so complete that it felt eternal. The ash fell thicker now, layering itself like time, erasing streets, names, and voices. Only the faint sound of breathing, scattered, shallow, proved that life still existed somewhere beneath the dust. In the cryptoporticus, Marcus listened to that breathing. It was the only sound left. The child in his arms no longer cried. Her head rested against his chest, her breath slow, rhythmic, fragile. Around them the others were silent, too tired to pray, too human to despair. He thought of Julia, of her voice echoing softly in the temple, and wondered if she was still speaking to the gods, or if even the gods had fallen silent. He wanted to believe that sound, even one word, could still reach them. He whispered to the child though she slept, "You'll wake soon, you'll see the sun." But the words felt strange in the dark, like birds trying to fly with broken wings. The heat pressed in again, a slow wave rolling through the stone walls. Dust drifted down in gray sheets. He closed his eyes, counting each breath, as if by doing so he could keep the world alive a little longer. In the temple, Julia sat among the survivors. The marble floor was warm beneath her palms, not from the sun, but from the earth itself.
The air shimmered faintly, glowing with an unseen fire. Around her, people had stopped talking. They simply listened to the wind, to the mountain's low growl, to the end. She lifted her face toward the dark and whispered, "Let them rest." The words were for the city, for the children, for the one she would never see again. A moment later, the second surge came, this one faster, hotter, carrying with it fine ash, gas, and invisible fire. It swept through the streets like night turned to wind. In an instant, Pompeii was gone. Yet even in that final breath, there was no terror, only stillness, the kind of stillness that belongs to eternity. The mountain's roar faded, the air cooled, the ash settled. Somewhere beyond the cloud, dawn arrived, but it could not enter. The sun rose over the Bay of Naples, painting the sky gold and red. But Pompeii lay in shadow, sealed beneath 6 meters of stone and silence. Pliny the Younger, watching from across the water, wrote later, "Darkness, not of night, but of closed rooms when the light is gone." He could not know that within that darkness, lives had ended not in chaos, but in grace. In the bakery, Lucius still sat near his family, their bodies close, his hand resting on his son's shoulder. In the temple, Julia knelt beneath the statue of Isis, her lips curved in prayer, her eyes open toward a light that never came. And in the cryptoporticus, Marcus still held the child, the lamp beside him gone cold. They were not afraid. They had become part of something vast, a silence older than memory. The mountain slept again. Pompeii was still.
At dawn, August 25th, the mountain exhaled one final time. The 6th surge, the last, the fiercest, descended upon what remained of Pompeii at 6:30 in the morning. It came without warning, a tidal wave of fire and ash moving faster than the wind, 100 miles per hour, 300 degrees of heat. But there was no pain, no struggle. The heat was instant, merciful, absolute. Those who had endured through the long night met their end, not in terror, but in silence, their final breath turning to dust before fear could find them. Marcus was still in the cryptoporticus, his hand resting on the child's shoulder. The lamp had long gone dark. When the surge came, it filled every space, air replaced by fire, breath replaced by stillness. In that moment, his heartbeat became one with the trembling earth. He did not move. He simply ceased, preserved not in agony, but in peace. Julia knelt at the temple, the statue of Isis behind her. Her lips were parted as if mid-prayer. The heat carved her outline into eternity, her hands clasped, her eyes open toward where the dawn would have been. Around her, the faithful who had stayed were frozen like guardians, their shapes untouched by time. And in the bakery, Lucius sat beside his family, his arms still around his wife, the youngest child curled against his side. The heat entered,
swift and soundless, sealing the last warmth of life into a sculpture of ash and memory. They didn't suffer long. The mountain's gift and its curse was instant sleep. When the surge ended, it left behind silence. The city had been buried beneath 16 to 20 feet of volcanic ash, a perfect stillness, a perfect tomb. The outlines of walls and bodies remained untouched, waiting. The air cooled. The light returned above the clouds, but it could not reach them. What was once Pompeii had become a world suspended, not destroyed, but paused, as if the gods themselves had pressed a finger upon time and whispered, "Enough." Scientists today call it a time capsule, a miracle of preservation that defied decay. But beneath that layer of science lies something more poetic, a stillness that speaks. The people of Pompeii did not vanish. They were kept. Their gestures, their belongings, even their hopes were sealed in stone, waiting to be seen again. The volcano had taken their lives, but in doing so, it had also given them immortality.
For 1,700 years, Pompeii slept beneath the earth, a city turned to stone, dreaming in silence. The mountain grew calm again, its once fiery heart beating now only in memory. Seasons passed, rain fell. The wind scattered seeds across the land where once there had been marble streets and laughter. Slowly, nature claimed the city, ivy winding through the cracks of buried walls, fig trees taking root where atriums had once echoed with conversation. The gods, it seemed, had given Pompeii back to the earth. Above ground, the world moved on. Empires rose and fell, languages changed, and people forgot the name that had once been spoken with reverence. The Bay of Naples glittered as always, its waters reflecting new sails, new dreams. But beneath, an entire civilization slept untouched, its people preserved mid-motion, like thoughts trapped between heartbeats. For centuries, no one knew, no one imagined that beneath the quiet vineyards and olive groves lay streets frozen in time, still waiting for footsteps that would never return. Pliny the Younger's letters, written by candlelight, carried across Rome, were the only voice that kept Pompeii alive. In those words, he described the black cloud, the smell of sulfur, the rain of ash, not as a scientist, but as a witness of the end of a world. His writings became the thread between the living and the lost, the one fragile bridge of memory across centuries of silence. And so the mountain kept its secret. Farmers plowed above it, monks walked past it, and children played unaware that beneath their feet history lay sleeping, perfectly preserved. The silence of Pompeii was not emptiness, it was incubation, a long breath of the earth holding its memory until the world was ready to remember. When storms rolled over the bay, thunder sometimes echoed strangely, a deep vibration from the ground, as if the city still sighed beneath its blanket of ash. The people of the coast told stories of lights under the soil, of voices in the wind.
They thought them myths. They were not wrong. Myths, after all, are only truths the earth tells slowly.
In 1748, a group of workers digging near the town of Resina uncovered something unusual. Walls, frescoes, pottery untouched by time. What they had found was the sleeping face of Pompeii, waking after 17 centuries of silence. Under the guidance of Giuseppe Fiorelli in the 19th century, the city was slowly revealed, not through conquest, but through care. Fiorelli invented a method to fill the hollow spaces left by human bodies with plaster, creating the hauntingly beautiful casts we see today. People frozen mid-motion, hands raised, faces serene, forever caught between life and eternity. They were not ghosts, they were memories molded by ash. Archaeologists uncovered homes, bakeries, taverns, gardens, each detail whispering the rhythm of ordinary life. On a wall, graffiti still read, "Gaius was here." In a bakery, loaves of bread lay carbonized yet whole. Jewelry gleamed faintly where it had fallen from a woman's neck. In the Garden of the Fugitives, 13 figures huddled together, their shapes curled toward one another, as if even in their last moments, humanity had chosen closeness over fear. The house of the tragic poet still warned Cave Canem, beware of the dog, a message that had survived 2,000 years of silence. The Villa of the Mysteries, with its crimson frescoes of the Dionysian rites, looked as though the artists had just stepped out for lunch. 2/3 of the city has been uncovered. The rest still sleeps, protected beneath its blanket of ash. And even now, new discoveries continue each year. Painted walls, mosaics, hidden courtyards, skeletons clasping hands. Pompeii is still speaking, gently, patiently, reminding us that life's beauty lies not in its permanence, but in its fragility. Scientists now know that Vesuvius still breathes. 3 million people live within its shadow, building homes, sharing laughter, unaware or perhaps simply brave in the face of history's quiet warnings. Yet Pompeii's message endures. Cherish the ordinary. Treasure the morning bread, the laughter of children, the warmth of another's hand. For it is these small things, not empires or monuments, that time chooses to preserve. The people of Pompeii are not remembered for how they died, but for how they lived, with art, with love, with purpose. As you drift to sleep tonight, remember them. Remember that even in stillness there is life, even in silence there is memory, and even in endings there are beginnings waiting to bloom. Their city sleeps eternal, and so shall you, until tomorrow's dawn brings new possibilities. As the waves brush softly against the ancient shore, Pompeii rests once more, not in tragedy, but in peace. The wind moves through her silent streets, carrying whispers of laughter, footsteps, and prayer. Time, in its endless patience, has turned ruin into memory, and memory into wisdom. Tonight, As you close your eyes, imagine the warmth of that distant sun, the quiet hum of a city alive with simple dreams. The same sun that once touched Pompeii still touches you now, reminding us that nothing truly ends, it only changes form. So breathe deeply, let the weight of the day fade, and drift as they did into a sleep beyond time, gentle and eternal. Their story is your story, of love, of impermanence, of life forever finding its way through ashes. Good night from Pompeii.